It is 10 o'clock, and we are going to go ahead and get started on day 4 of the City Council review of the Mayor's proposed FY23 municipal budget. It is Wednesday, May 18th. I am joined by my colleagues, Councilmember Dustin Hillis, Council President Doug Shipman, FEC Vice Chair Howard Shook, Councilmember Mary Norwood, and Councilmember Matt Westmoreland. I'm sure others will be cycling in and out throughout the day as their schedules permit. So for today's hearing schedule, we're going to start with Public Works now at 10. Invest Atlanta will be with us at 11. We have a lunch break at noon, followed by Watershed Management at 1. And then our final presentation will be Atlanta Information Management at 2 p.m. For the listening and viewing public, an electronic copy of the budget book and all presentations can be found under the proposed FY23 budget tab on the Finance Executive page of the City Council website. As has been our process, we're going to allow the presenters to make it through their entire presentation, and then we'll entertain questions from my colleagues at that point. If you are interested, just signal to me and I'll add your name to the list. I think that's it. With that, I'm going to ask Commissioner Wiggins to take the helm, introduce your team. Colleagues, we are on page 241 of our budget book, and we're also joined by Councilmember Antonio Lewis. So, Commissioner, I'll hand the floor to you and let you take it away.
Good morning, Chairman Wan and council members. Thank you for this opportunity to present the Department of Public Works FY 2023 proposed budget. I am Commissioner Al Wiggins, Jr., and with me are members of my executive team. Immediately to my left is Deputy Commissioner of Administration, Keith Robinson. To his immediate left is Melissa Davis, our Program Manager of Finance. Immediately to my right is Deputy Commissioner Anu Salsivov. He is our Commissioner of Operations, and immediately to his right is Ms. Kanika Greenlee, who is the Director of Keep Atlanta Beautiful, Executive Director, and the Director of Solid Waste Services. Before I begin our presentation, I would like to thank this administration and the council for your unwavering support while we work through some very challenging times to deliver core services. I would also like to thank the entire Public Works team, from the frontline staff to our supervisors to our management team, for their diligence and commitment. Due to the impacts of COVID-19, the city faced many challenges over the past 2 years, and I've had the pleasure of leading this great department through the last year of our struggles. Much like public safety, we're a mission-critical organization, and I am proud of the work that we do and the men and women behind the scenes that keep the city of Atlanta clean and safe. Okay, we'd like to begin by discussing some of our accomplishments and highlights that occurred during FY22. Again, despite our challenges associated with COVID-19 and the national labor crisis, we've made some significant accomplishments. We were able to achieve our reaccreditation through the American Public Works Association. We're proud to say that there are only 129 accredited agencies in North America. We created the Office of Service Delivery to improve customer service. The Office of Fleet Service is the 2021 winner of the Southeast Governmental Fleet Managers Association. And we launched an innovative partnership with 2 local landscaping firms to help restore yard trimming collections. You'll see a summary of our current operations beginning at FY20. You'll see that the trend has been pretty consistent. This year you'll see a reduction of approximately $2.5 million in our Fleet Services division and an increase of approximately $4 million in our Solid Waste Services. Ms. Greenlee will take the next slide of our continued operations involving waste disposal.
Good Good morning, members of council. So the map on your left-hand side shows the location of our transfer stations. We use one recycling processing transfer stations, two municipal solid waste transfer stations, and one yard trimmings transfer station. There is some fragility in these transfer station locations due to the majority being outside of the city and creating more drive time for our crews. On the right, you'll see what we are currently paying to process our waste, solid waste, recycling, and yard waste. The recycling does not include the current revenue share that we're in. And then I just wanted to talk a little bit about recycling commodity prices. As you can see in the chart on the bottom right-hand side, we've seen great increases in the recycling markets, which have rebounded drastically. So we just highlighted a few of them.
Okay, moving on to performance metric highlights. Notable item is that during Q2 of the current budget year, in areas of missed collections, we were only able to capture 32% of our complaints. After establishing the Office of Service Delivery, that measure rose to 99%, which was a capture of about 67%. We're very proud of that. The Office of Service Delivery is working very well. Many of you receive a weekly report of the activities that take place throughout each week. Hopefully that has shown significant impact with your offices also. We have also established a relationship with Hands on Atlanta through the IKE digital kiosk, where volunteers are able to sign up for volunteer opportunities such as litter removal on our right-of-ways and various other projects throughout the city. We have also established a standardized approach to maintaining our public right-of-ways, which is arterial roads will be managed twice a month, and our collector streets will be handled once a month, and the remaining streets will be handled on a complaint basis only. As you know, we have a finite amount of resources, and we have to establish priorities and really understand how we could use the services and resources that we have most effectively. Moving on to the next slide. Our DPW authorized position count. Currently we have active 510 positions and about 155 vacant unfunded positions. It has been a struggle to staff several positions. That struggle continues. DPW is faced with the challenge of retention and recruitment. Particularly, we have struggles with retention with internal and external forces. Many of our sister and brother departments pay beyond the hourly rate of what DPW provides, and so we're losing employees to internal sources and external employers as well. So next year, we are down approximately 170 positions, which brings us to a total count of 680 positions that are allocated. Again, 170 of those positions are currently unfunded. Moving on to the next slide. You'll see our proposed budget for the Department of Fleet Services. You'll see a reduction of nearly $2.5 million in the area of personnel and employee benefits. Moving on to the next slide will be the solid waste budget handled by Deputy Commissioner New.
Good morning, council members. I don't know if y'all can hear me. Can you hear me okay? Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Okay, good. I'll talk a little closer to it. So the solid waste slide I'm going to mention, talk about is the funding line item. The personnel and employee benefits is what you see in front of you is roughly about 56% of our overall budget. That also includes a 2% cost of living adjustment as well. The next portion of the funding line item is the purchase and contracted service of $14 million, a little over $14 million. That has increased over the past year. Historically, it's been under budget the past few years. We have now increased that slightly, provide some of the key core services that we provide for our residents, such as garbage disposal, landfill remediations, yard debris processing, recyclable processing, facility maintenance also, and security services. So that's where most of that funding line item is geared towards. The capital outlays that you see will be purchasing of two vehicles for our newly created customer service delivery team. They're going to provide some additional QA/QC for some of the areas that we have issues with. They're going to be out in the field actually looking and resolving some of these issues that we are faced with. So we're going to provide them with two vehicles on that capital outlay side. I did skip, the supplies line item, the $1.5 million. A slight increase there as well. This is for primary purchases for supplies and small equipment. These are small equipment items that we use for our right-of-way maintenance, such as lawn mowers, weed eaters, smaller items that we use there. And also one of the major items, as you probably know, Herbie's receptacle bins. That's line items used to purchase those items as well. Moving down for the interdepartmental charges, those are primarily our repair and maintenance for our solid waste refuse trucks. That funding is charged back to the fleet department and also for fuel. Debt services, the last line item that you see in front of you, a little over $2.5 million. Back in 2018, the department actually acquired 49 pieces of equipment. We are set to make our final payment in February of 2025. That annual cost is a little over $2.5 million. So what you see presented in front of you is a little over $60 million, close to $61 million, which represents a $4.6 million increase, almost an 8% increase total. Next slide you'll see presented in front of you is the DPW water and wastewater funding line item. The department has a MOU with the Department of Watershed to provide sweeping services for the combined sewer area services that we provide for the city. The budget represents a little over $1 million, 1.1, which provides solid waste services, the ability to acquire sweepers, and also they provide payment to our employees. We have 12 employees that will provide sweeping at designated areas throughout the city there. That takes us to the next slide, key metrics.
So we would like to highlight some of our goals and key metrics for FY23. Our goal is to increase our average attendance rate to 80%. We still struggle with attendance due to injuries. As you know, this is a rigorous line of work that we perform, and so we're looking at ways to introduce technology that will reduce the tasks that are performed that are really injury prone, and we're looking to reduce our miscollection rate and our response to miscollection rates to 99%. As it relates to social media, we're looking at increasing our social media impressions and the average amount of time spent on the DPW webpage by 10%. We learned through a recent exercise that DPW participated in with a citizen focus group is that many of our citizens are really unaware of the full suite of services that we provide, and so we have decided to aggressively really promote the services that we provide through social media. We are also looking at reducing the number of escalation and premature closures and duplicate requests submitted through ATL 311. We've had a huge amount of success with this already through the implementation of the Office of Service Delivery. We are also looking at our preventative maintenance compliance in our fleet maintenance division by at least 97%. Our on-time vehicles inspections to reach the 97% level, and our vehicle availability rate to at least 95%. As you know, we're dealing with an aging fleet. Part of our challenges is that it is very difficult to source parts and new vehicles to the extent that we've had to go into our surplus vehicle lot and reactivate many of our vehicles to put back into day-to-day operations. And so our reliability rate of many of our vehicles has tremendously gone down because of that reason. Moving on to our other items in our plan of operation. We want to upgrade our enterprise asset management software solution for enhanced fleet and fuel management services. We would also like to increase our fleet services workflow and production by modernizing maintenance facilities with up-to-date tools and equipment. We would also like to extend our fleet replacement plan into year 2, which is approximately $7 million. We'll move on to our innovation and technology area of this presentation. We find it very important to use innovation and technology to deploy the services that we provide more efficiently. As I mentioned earlier, we have a finite amount of resources. The need will always be greater than our resources. Therefore, we have to establish priorities in order to understand how to deploy our resources most effectively. I'll hand the presentation over to Deputy Commissioner Robinson to explain some of the ideas that we have in the area of innovation and technology.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, council members. You know, one of the things DPW is... Eric, can you hear me better here? Gotcha, thank you. DPW's goal is really to be the innovative leader nationally in the Department of Public Works. One of the things, as Commissioner mentioned earlier as well, too, is to make better informed business intelligent decisions and insights. You know, technology is going to play a key role in gathering the data so we can make better informed decisions. I think that's going to be a critical part. In addition to that, by gathering these insights in the future, this will also help lay the foundation to outcome-based budgeting for the department as well, too, because, you know, we really believe outcome-based budgeting is the proper way to move forward for this department. If we go to the next slide, the first one was the literal. There you go, thanks. If we look at this slide here, you know, this gives an example here. You know, we did an internal audit, you know, where we had our teams go out and did a litter index. And what that did was allow us to become more proactive in how we actually approach right-of-way cleaning and maintenance. Instead of being in a reactive state to where we rely on customer complaints, we developed a schedule to where we can actually be more proactive in actually addressing this. And technology plays a key role in this. You know, obviously you can see also with the trash receptacle study that we've done as well, too, where a spatial analysis will allow us to actually better place these clans, you know, throughout the city based off the data that's actually collected. So this is, actually a critical component of actually the importance of technology and using technology, and the department is going to continue to use that and make those investments. If we go to the next slide, the use of mobile surveillance cameras. Now, obviously, it's not the silver bullet, but it's also a deterrent, you know, where we actually ran the pilot. We've actually have seen, you know, illegal dumping obviously decreased tremendously in this areas. And also, in addition to this, you know, by having the mobile surveillance cameras, you know, a key component to this as well, too, is the command center that we're looking to stand up for the department, where we can actually look at illegal dumping, monitoring illegal dumping, also in addition to illegal dumping, also monitoring our vehicles as it's out en route as well, too, and also with our fleet, too. So having that command center, just think of like in the utility space, like SCADA, for example, where you have a command center looking for SCADA in the utility space, but having that command center here where we can actually do complete monitoring. And this is something that we believe will be a huge investment in several different areas. And the other interesting point about the mobile cameras, as we move these cameras around, it also gives us the ability to collect data and information on where we may need to put other cameras, you know, long-term or fixed cameras as well, too, as we collect that information. So this allows us to do quick hits and pivot real quick, but at the same time begin to give us an insight into where we should position long-term cameras. The next slide, you know, if you've seen the AJC article, radio-controlled mowers. I mean, I think this is something that's very critical. Obviously, when we look at hard-to-reach areas for the safety of our employees, I think this is a great opportunity to use radio-controlled mowers. Also in our post-landfill closure, where we have slope mowing, where that provides safety. And it may also help us decrease some of our reliance on some of our contractors as well, too, by the acquisition of these mowers. We know that the airport is currently using these mowers, but at the same time, these mowers will also give us amount of insight and data that we've never collected before. As we look at, in terms of the amount that we're able to mow, the tonnage, whatever the amount that we're able to clean as well, too. So we believe this will give us a great opportunity, but also give our employees a new skill set as well, too, by understanding robotics as well, too. And that's something that the department is very concerned about as well, too, is making sure that we continue to build the skill set of our current employees. If we go to the next slide, which is our routing software and our routing platform. Essentially what we're looking at, although we say routing platform, but this is actually be a platform for the whole department for solid waste. This more than turn-by-turn directions. This will give us insight in terms of distance as it relates to our landfills. It also gives us an ability to monitor performance by each of the different routes. It also allows us to balance the routes as well, too. In addition to balancing the routes, it also gives us some other unique things that we will be able to make real-time decisions based off of the flow of litter as it's in the field during that current time. So those are some of the things that is going to be very critical, especially as we have new employees that come to the department that may not be from Atlanta as well, too. Having that turn-by-turn directions also helps improve the frequency. I'm actually getting it right, and I think this will also give us real-time data to really get past of collecting data on did we make the routes based off of call data, but actually more accurate data based off of the technology as well, too. And finally, as we talk about innovation, one of the things that we don't have on the slide as well, too, is, innovation into our employees. Obviously, we're a second chance employee. I always think of Dr. Martin Luther King about all dignity has labor. Making sure that our employees have the ability to move up. Whether it's we have that free CDL program, who knows? We may have someone that may start a trucking company. We may have someone that may start another business. I think we have a great group of employees that we can actually make a huge difference in. And also, as we think through this as well, too, that innovation will also provide a new tax base as well, too, as these employees begin new businesses. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Wiggins.
And just to add a few points to what Deputy Commissioner Robinson just mentioned, as we begin to think more innovatively as leaders in the department, we have learned, so have our employees. Recently, without our involvement, they have developed an application for right-of-way maintenance. Over the last week, they just brought this to our attention. So this was completely self-driven. This application will allow them to provide and input case notes into this application as far as photographs and as far as information of details that may need to be passed on to their colleagues, and as well as our vendors who we utilize to provide maintenance as well. And so through our QA/QC team, they are able to go and take photographs when the work has not been properly completed and send that information back to our vendors to explain that payment will not be received until the work has been done correctly. So I'm very proud of this group. I'm very proud that they have embraced technology, which is oftentimes difficult for legacy employees, but they have jumped in with both feet, and I am very convinced, and I know that you'll be proud of what you'll see over the next 12 months that will come out of this department with the resources that will be provided to us. And that concludes our presentation. The floor for questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I want to recognize we've been joined since we started here by Council Members Winston, Dozier, Boone, and Overstreet. All right, so we'll entertain questions now. I've got Hillis, followed by Dozier. And if anybody else, just signal to me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, and your colleagues for the presentation. First, I want to start with your page 7, authorized position counts. So, am I understanding that you're not funding any of your current vacancies?
They are currently funded according to the incoming budget year. They're being allocated to additional.
Okay. Well, that's to make math work or something, but that's pretty glaring given, their vacancy rate, and then in your organizational structure alone, you have 4 I would say, very key vacancies in performance management, facility manager, special ops, and fleet services. So, I mean, what is the plan there? Or are we just going to come back and ask for money when we hopefully increase our headcount, or what is the plan?
Well, so as I understand it, my apologies. So as I understand it, the methodology of the finance department is to take a comprehensive view of the positions that were staffed during the current budget year, and those decisions are carried over into the upcoming budget year. Recruitment of these positions will not stop, as I understand it. And as we demonstrate the need and the ability to onboard these positions, that the funding will be provided. If I understood this correctly, I'll defer to Chief Bala for any other details. So, again, these are positions that we believe that are needed in the department, but as it currently stands, the funding has not been released until we're able to actively recruit for these positions.
Okay. Well, let me add one more point, and then I'd like to hear from finance about this. It's saying that you are, in the current year's budget, you have funded in FY22 155 vacancies, and we're going down to zero. However, when you look at the regular salaries, the budget's only going down about $1.2 million, which, with my math, is about $7,600 per position. So, can I get some clarity on that from either you, Commissioner, or Finance?
Well, I will say why I believe that finance is preparing for their response is that a portion of the increase across fleet and solid waste services is due to the uptick in contractual services in the solid waste service arena, particularly due to our personnel shortages. Our contracted services cost has gone up. As you know, we also have an increase in our salaries line item due to the COLA that will be given in the upcoming budget cycle. But I'll defer to the Department of Finance for further clarification.
So just 2 quick points. Commissioner Wiggins is correct in the methodology that was used for how we calculated salaries. We did take a snapshot in time in March, people sitting in seats, and that was essentially a bottoms-up way of budgeting for positions. There is still a VRB process by which commissioners and departments come back to their appropriate deputy COO and COO to get approval for filling vacancies and so forth. But the other comment I would make is, even though there is 680 in the headcount, remember that's authorized FTE. There's not necessarily an intention to fully fund 680 positions, but in order for them to right-size the department. So there continues to be additional opportunity to fill vacancies.
Okay.
Wait, but I don't want to lose this point here. This doesn't make sense. I mean, if Councilmember Hills is right, I mean, if there is this unfunding of those positions, there should be a commensurate decrease in the salary line going into FY23. We're not seeing that. I understand there may be some salary increases and all that, but it doesn't explain 155 positions that are getting. So I don't know if this chart is just not, it doesn't really reflect correctly what the intent is.
And we've also funded extra help. So there's funding in the budget for extra help positions as people are brought on and they need to be moved into permanent positions. So there's an accommodation on that one as well.
But it's not 155 positions. I mean, so I would ask that y'all do go back and look at this. There's something that does not jive here. And then what, kind of on top of that, and I'll give it back to Councilmember Hillis, is that if what he's saying is correct, that if, as the recruiting continues, that means next year, if this is actually correct, we're going to start seeing budget requests increases for those new positions that were previously were defunded and that we're funding back again. And I'm not sure that's a good way of setting a budget in advance. I kind of think you plan for what you need, and then you adjust to the variance as you go along versus plan a budget for what you have now and then just say, oh, we'll just incrementally add it along the way. But anyway, I'll hand it back over to Councilmember Hills.
Yeah, I mean, this is just concerning because this comes at, a very crucial time where we've just settled a $19 million lawsuit and we're talking about transferring at least the special operations side of solid waste to the general fund. I mean, what do we want to do? Increase the millage rate mid-year again when we decide we need more positions? I just don't. And we're taking a snapshot at a time when people are having missed collections. We're not getting the special ops that we really need. So, I mean, if we're going to go out to people and, we're just moving it from, one collection method to another, but we are increasing, if that is the route we choose, either whether it's ad valorem or special or general fund. I mean, it's still showing up on your tax bill. So, I mean, we need to get this straight because we're not going to get, a mulligan, halfway through the year and go back to, we got to reissue your tax bills.
Yes, that would not be the intention, but of course we can certainly provide you more details. I think there are some anomalies that deal with fleet and solid waste, so there's currently no general fund impact, but we can certainly circle back with you.
Thank you. And before I move on to another topic, these 4 vacant positions on your organizational structure chart, which I've made the point were our key positions that are very important, and there are positions where I just mentioned we're having issues at: fleet, special ops, performance management. Where are these in the process? Are all these 4 posted? Are there candidates being interviewed? Have offers been made? Where are we there?
So the positions that are referenced as vacant remain vacant, but making a connection to the reduction in funded positions, I believe the majority, if not all of these positions, were funded probably during the time the evaluation was made of our current amount of FTEs. So I believe that these positions are funded in the upcoming budget cycle. I'll verify that. So these are positions that we have recently lost.
Well, going back to the charts and the budget in our budget book, it just doesn't add up because it says 0 vacant positions are being funded in the upcoming budget. So if we could just get some more follow-up from you in finance on that. And this was brought up yesterday because we had police and fire in front of us with fleet. And I know we've had some conversations about this. I believe when we first spoke, it was because we were approaching right at 100 vehicles, APD vehicles alone, in the shop, whether in your shop or outsourced to dealership servicers. We made some improvement on that, brought it down to, I believe, 78. And now the last update I've heard is up to 111. Again, that's just APD vehicles. We heard from the fire chief yesterday as well. There are 3 ladder trucks down, which I believe, depending on what the issue is, those may be outsourced. What in this budget, certainly not 0 vacant funded positions, but what in this budget helps DPW improve fleet services and get our city vehicles back out on the road so our employees can do the jobs they're tasked with doing?
That's a great question, Councilmember Hillis. Many of our challenges were rooted in finding the proper leadership. And
say that again.
Many of our problems were rooted in finding the proper leadership to identify ways to address issues of standing repairs. I will say we're working with the police department. Many of the vehicles that you have referenced are out for repairs not due to mechanical failure. Many of the vehicles are out due to damages such as wrecks, damaged windshields, just things that are associated with the service that they provide. Public safety will always experience those type of challenges, and there's services that we have outsourced through providers throughout the metro area. They're struggling with the same challenges as we are as far as obtaining parts and hiring technicians. The COO recently had some challenges with her vehicle, and of course we want to make sure that she has her vehicle so she is able to get to and from her meetings and city-related affairs. And there's a part that has been on back order for over 60 days. And so some of our challenges are due to things that we can certainly improve internally. We have made significant changes, and we will continue to do so. But we also have to look at the array of providers that we use. The majority of our fleet are Ford vehicles, and so we have a limited amount of repair shops that we're able to use, but we are expanding the network of repair shops. We are looking to extend the hours that fleet services conduct vehicle repairs, but of course you need staffing in order to extend the hours. And so to some extent it becomes the chicken or the egg concept, which comes first. And so, to address your question in the area of budgeting, what have we done? The scenario that we mentioned before is that just bringing on additional staff. And we've had a discussion with the Department of Human Resources as well as the Department of Finance of us looking at a compensation and pay study for our Fleet Services Division to make sure that we're paying a competitive wage. The unique part about the Fleet Services Division is that we're not only competing with other municipal and county local governments, we're competing with the private sector who can become much more aggressive and nimble in their recruitment efforts.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. That's all I have for now.
All right, Councilmember Dozier, followed by Shipman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to follow up with Councilmember Hillis's thread about the fleet services piece, I know the year-over-year data wasn't in the presentation, but looking at the mayor's budget, it appears to be roughly a $3 million reduction from the previous fiscal year for fleet services. A lot of that's tied to salaries. And so just recognizing the feedback that we've gotten from our emergency services folks, at least when I've talked to various zone commanders and visited various different police precincts, there seems to be a lot of consternation around the state of our fleet. And I was just curious if your office will be willing to share with this body, I guess, where we are in terms of number or percentage of vehicles that are down, or in the Army we had a term called deadline. I don't know what your version of that is, but what is not able to be operated out in the field. And I'm really curious to see what that looks like by department, and also see what KPIs or metrics are tied to that, whether or not there's an expectation that 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, 12 months down the line, we expect that same level of reduction in available fleet for our various departments, just so we have some expectation that when we'll be back aligned to 100% capacity.
Yes, another great question, Councilmember Dozier. We're actively working through exactly what you have referenced as it relates to KPIs, not only for our full-time equivalent staff members, for our outside providers. We're looking at utilizing our vendor scorecards and how we make decisions if we continue to conduct business with certain providers. And as we submit or post solicitations for proposals, we will provide that vendor scorecard for them to understand our expectations for their performance as well. Again, this goes back to software as Deputy Commissioner Robinson mentioned, we came before the CUC not long ago, and we requested additional funding to expand the existing software program that we have, to add additional modules to capture information such as what you've just mentioned. We've learned that the service level agreements vary among the departments we serve, which is appropriate in some cases, but the variance is much larger than what we're comfortable with. And so we do have our eye on the ball as it relates to tightening our belt with fleet and making sure that the work that we perform is done first safely and secondly efficiently as well. But a big part of that is bringing on key leadership positions. As Councilmember Hill has mentioned, we are down a director and a deputy director's position for that department. What we are looking at, we're taking a different approach as it relates to that department. I am looking for a business manager and an administrator to lead that department that will manage a team of professionals. We're looking at everything from the turnaround rate for our vehicles. We are implementing additional service managers. Mechanics are great at repairing vehicles and diagnosing problems, but we are asking our mechanics to input information into the system. You have a very detailed group of leaders in front of you. We want to know to the half of court, how much oil are you putting in the car? How many boats are you putting on the vehicle to repair it? We want to capture costs, time, and labor for all of the services that are performed in that division. And so as we recruit, we have to recruit differently than we have in the past. And so, again, I believe that you will be pleased with the results that you see over the next 12 months, but we're actively working on all of these areas.
Thank you. And then just thinking through some of the challenges I've heard from transportation, from watershed, and from other departments that have had to go through these pretty extensive procurement processes and getting supplies. And I know the global supply chain right now is out of whack. A lot of it's tied to the pandemic, a lot of it's tied to inflation, all of it's tied to oil and gas prices. With requisitioning supplies for fleet services, are you seeing an increase in delay because of these factors outside of our control, or do you think that with the changes we're making to personnel and software, we'll be able to address the timeliness issue regardless of what's happening in a larger global economy?
Yes, sir. We're seeing a delay because of all of the factors that you mentioned, but we will own our issues as well. We have had some challenges internally, and the only way to remedy those issues is for us to take a deep dive. Deputy Commissioner New is the acting director of fleet. He was intentionally brought on board because of his experience in performing work in the private sector, as well as his background in IT and public works and project management. So he will provide broad oversight of that department until we find the correct person to lead the fleet division. But until then, every person that you see represented at this table has had some involvement with improving our day-to-day processes with fleet. As you probably have heard me say before, and staff has heard me to say 1,000 times, we are always looking at building a better mousetrap. Continuous improvement is the core of what we do. So again, we are aware and we have made significant progress, but the biggest challenge remains is still in the recruitment area, where we're also looking at non-traditional recruitment tactics. We're looking at the possibility of erecting billboards. We're looking at traveling outside of this region to find the right person. And we're also looking at non-traditional managers that may not be, again, experts in the fleet arena, but we're looking for those who are experts in change management and a manager who is able to yield results.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams, and Chair, I yield my time.
Thank you. Let me just say that I appreciate the work that all of you have done during the last 2 years. There's probably no department that I got more questions about on the campaign trail than yours. This is a very personal issue for folks, as you well know, on a daily basis. So, and my kids love to see the trucks roll up on Friday mornings on my street. So thank you for the entertainment. I will preface by saying, similar to Councilmember Hillis, I think this is a very important time that we understand some of the specifics here, given the frontage fee conversation that we had last week in the work session. So I have a number of topics I want to touch on quickly, but I want to start actually with finance, if I could. Was this budget in deficit last year in fiscal year 22? Do we anticipate that we'll finish this fiscal year in deficit?
Just clarifying question. Are you asking about solid waste or fleet or?
Solid waste and then combined.
So for FY22, our projection for the end of the year is a slight surplus at about $1 million.
Okay, so we have a slight surplus in this budget for FY22, but as Councilmember Hillis pointed out, and the presentation made clear on page 7, there's 155 vacant positions that have been funded within that budget. Rough math, $6 million unspent that in essence was budgeted. So in essence, we're running a slight surplus. You're running a slight surplus here, being asked to do what you're doing, but basically because of the inability to hire, which I'm not blaming you for, but if we were fully staffed, this would be in deficit, correct?
As we see it, yes. And I would also like to add, this comment may be beneficial as it relates to the surplus or the perceived surplus from the previous years, is that the maintenance that we perform, there are chargebacks associated to the respective departments. And as I mentioned earlier, we are looking to hire service managers to capture the cost of the work that we perform. I believe that there are opportunities currently for us to do a better job in doing that. It's not a direct representation of the surplus that you're seeing now, but I do believe that if we were capturing those costs correctly, the deficit or the surplus would not be as great as you see today. So, but to answer your question, if we were fully staffed, I don't see this budget as being adequate. But I would also say the Department of Finance has been very supportive in explaining that they will work with us on finding ways to capture the cost for the services that we provide and to charge back to the departments, and working to assist us with staffing these positions if we're able to onboard them.
Understood. So, related question. How much in this budget are you projecting for FY23 in income from recycling? What's the assumption there of the revenue from recycling sales that you will undertake?
You know, we're expecting to collect a little bit over $1 million in revenue share for this current budget cycle. Again, the market is so fluid right now, it's very difficult to make a projection. There's been a significant shift over the past 12 months that we anticipate that we will see a continuation. Just late last night, Ms. Greenlee and I had a discussion about establishing additional pop-up shops, particularly in the area where we have density, where apartment dwellers are that may not have the opportunity to participate in recycling programs, so we would like to capture those items, not just because we will be able to divert those items from the landfill, but there may be an ability for us to add to the bottom line of solid waste services through capturing those commodities.
Understood. But just to give the public a sense, obviously the markets are the markets, but it's not like a $10 million number. It's $1 million number, a $2 million number, right? It's somewhere in there from a revenue perspective, right, on a year-to-year basis. I mean, it's not half your budget. It's just the point I'm trying to make. It's a small portion of this is mostly about costs, right?
That's exactly right. But I'll defer to Deputy PMO Ms. Greenlee to get closer to the pen on that.
You're exactly right, President Shipman. So we assume it would be about $1 million to $2 million a year. Recycling markets are just like the stock market, so they fluctuate daily, weekly.
Sure. So in the budget book, it does show an increase in contracted services. And obviously, it makes intuitive sense if you're not able to hire and you're still providing the services, you've got to go to the market to contracted services. In your opinion, is it more expensive to go with contracted services versus hired staff? And if so, give us a sense. Is it a 10% premium to go out to the market? Is it a 50% premium? I don't have a good sense of that.
So most of our time has been spent really rebounding from issues regarding curbside collections. I will say this. We have put soft feelers out there. It would be very difficult to gain the interest of private waste haulers utilizing the current model that we have, collecting items outside of the can. And so we have looked at outsourcing portions of solid waste services, but our model does not provide an immediate way of a private waste hauler understanding what the profit margin will be, because there's so many variables in what we do. In particular, I'll give yard waste as an example. They aren't able to adequately predict the level of waste that will be placed at the curbside. It varies among the day, it varies among the season, it's very sporadic. The rate of our bulk collections. And so I will say that also when we experience our challenges at our worst time, which was back in December, other local municipalities that had completely outsourced solid waste services, they were entirely vulnerable to what the private waste hauler and services that they provided. The city of Macon, for an example, went days and I believe up to weeks without having their waste collected at curbside. So there's a level of vulnerability with privatization. Of course, when we liquidate our capital assets, it's very difficult to restore or resume services after we've lost personnel and the equipment to perform the service. But to answer your question, I don't have a precise number of what that would look like. I do believe that if we were to engage a private waste hauler, we would have to really scale down the services that we provide. In addition to the challenges with gaining entrance of a private waste hauler, the city of Atlanta is very unique in the regards that we only provide residential services and a small amount of multifamily pickups as well. We don't operate our own landfill, so there will be additional costs, and so the market is very competitive. So for an example, there are only a few transfer stations, and the transfer stations that are most strategically located for the city of Atlanta, the owners of those transfer stations who will bid on our curbside collection services will be able to provide a higher rate because of the windshield time that we have to use with taking our trash to the transfer stations. And so it's a very complex question that you ask. As you know, we're looking at that as well as the pay-as-you-throw model. But I don't have an exact number of what that would look like. But through this process, we'll have a better idea next year.
Okay, so then if I go to page 4 of your presentation, the budget trend, FY20 actual, just short of 50 million, call it 49 million. This year, for solid waste services. FY20 actual around 49, FY23 proposed just a little over 60. That's a compound annual growth rate over those 3 years of 7.5%. It means costs are going up 7.5% on that category every year. That's more than most of what I've seen in other budgets that we have seen so far. And we know that if you were fully staffed, it would have been short of what you needed to provide the services that you're being asked to provide. So my question is that trend line, in your opinion, going to continue? Can we expect that kind of growth in costs over the course of the next few years? Because that is a significantly higher growth of cost than inflation, and it's a significantly higher growth of cost than other parts of the budget.
Yeah, although I think, much of the cost that you see is in direct correlation to the consumer price index, the rising price of fuel, and the cost of labor. I will say that we have identified areas where we are able to trim costs. For an example, the use of automated side loader trucks. We currently, the majority of our fleet is currently rear loader trucks where we have a 3-person crew on the collection route. Through the use of automated side loaders, eventually those trucks will be used or operated by a single operator, reducing the overall cost by 66% for each route. So we do believe that there are opportunities for us to reduce costs. And quite frankly, the implementation of software will capture some of the redundancies that occur today. So I do believe there will be an offset of the increase that you mentioned in perpetuity.
Just to follow up on that point, are all of the software purchases that you're hoping to provide within this budget enumerated?
So I'll let Ms. Greenlee speak to that. She is the project manager over that program, but that is our goal.
Particularly the solid waste software, yes, it is in there.
It's included in the budget?
Yes.
And you also mentioned the dumping, having a command center. Are all of those costs within this budget?
So, yes, but no. We're working with AIM to capture some of the costs that some of our budgeted funds that weren't fully utilized for this budget cycle to stand up the operations center. And I want to provide a better line of sight of how the operations center will work. And this will just be basically a space with monitors and cameras, and we will utilize existing staff. I anticipate only hiring one additional staff member that was not currently in our organizational chart to respond to complaints or notifications that we may receive from video alerts from our surveillance cameras. But we intend to put our existing staff into the operations center on a rotational basis.
And just to follow up for clarity, if you respond to an illegal dumping, is that an APD issue, is that a U issue, or is it both?
It could be all of the above. If it's an environmental hazard, it could be, the APD could be involved. We work closely with APD code enforcement and the solicitor's office. Ms. Greenlee and I are working with the code enforcement team to be able to quickly identify levels of illegal dumping that constitute a felony. As you mentioned, the disposal of hazardous material to a certain extent could constitute a felony. So there are various agencies that would be involved just depending on the materials that are disposed of.
And last question, how much do the radio control mowers cost?
So
they're very cool looking, by the way.
they're circa $55,000, and again, this is another tool that we're looking at as we have challenges working with the state of keeping our interchanges mowed. We were thinking that we could use that equipment to possibly mow the interchanges and the larger width medians as well, which will help us to also reduce the crew size by having a single operator.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Shook, followed by Overstreet.
right, thank you. Has the department had a chance to look at potential savings from going back to a quadrant solid transfer station format, which at one time was a goal that went unmet?
So that will be part of the software acquisition, where they will do a route analysis, and the route analysis will be based on the equipment that we currently have, the location of our transfer stations, the location of our installations, and so that will be part of that process.
Okay. Regarding injury trends, I've got a request. There was for a while in the Public Works quarterly reports a metric, comparing last quarter's injuries with prior quarters that seems, as I remember, to have been replaced by a metric showing the number of safety-related training sessions and the attendance thereto. But if you could go back, are we in general experiencing more injuries, the same or less than last year?
The situation has been fluid. What we do know is that there's seasonal injuries. During the summer months, we experience a significant uptick in injuries. We have a new safety manager who we have asked to provide these reports. As a department, we have established KPIs, and so we recently began monitoring those KPIs about 60 days ago. And so, of course, 60 days has not been long enough for us to be able to establish a solid trend.
Okay. Regarding mobile cameras, great idea. Two questions related to that. So you place a camera in your favorite illegal dumping ground. That activity subsides. Is there evidence indicating that instead of happening here, it now happens over here? Or is it just a slap reduction period?
Not as of yet, but what it has been able to do is for us to identify common factors that are among. So for an example, we have 3 of the cameras that we're evaluating, and we've learned that the tree canopy in those areas are heavier than other areas, and so we're working with the Parks Division to trim those areas back. But the places where we are placing the cameras, there isn't an existing camera network, and so installing one camera there is a possibility that they may go a block away, but we have not experienced that.
Have any of these cameras resulted in citations being issued?
Not as of yet. We're in the about a week and a half, 2 weeks now.
Oh,
and so, no, we have not been able to issue citations as of yet because we have not had any occurrences of illegal dumping.
Okay. All right, so then I'm going to ask another sort of vacancy-related question, but I'm going to do it in a more sort of historical context. This department, historically, relatively speaking, always has a high number of vacancies. It just always has. I don't ever recall a time when it was under 15%, say. So at what point should an assumption be made that there's no data that indicates it's ever going to get better, despite the hiring blitz du jour and recruiting this and classes the other thing and onboarding, waterboarding, whatever? At what point is it just fair to assume this is the typical number of employees we're going to have, and we have to perform these tasks, and we're going to perform these tasks with this number of people?
Councilmember Shook, me just approaching a year and just observing the process, I see this issue as surmountable. For an example, we have been able to increase the amount of environmental service workers that we've onboarded. When I initially came on board, there was a requirement that the environmental service workers have a GED or a high school diploma. We believe that they're, folks that will be able to provide an immediate contribution without immediately obtaining those credentials, and our mindset is that we will help them if they're interested in obtaining their high school diploma or GED. And so I believe that we have to just think differently in order to onboard better. Obviously, if the private sector is able to do it, we should be able to do it as well. We just need to be able to work with the Department of Human Resources and the Executive Office, who has been very supportive and giving us the tools to be able to recruit more aggressively, such as the attendance-based incentive pay that they are receiving now. So, again, me coming in with 12 months of institutional knowledge, I believe that the issue can be remedied.
So your department was accredited, got the national accreditation when?
It was approximately, 3 months ago that we received our reaccreditation? Yes.
So someone took a look at, I guess, a careful encyclopedic look at your organization and said, they've got 25% vacancies, but they're doing a great job.
Well, yes, but again, the accreditation process, it's a weighted criteria. And so if personnel had a heavy emphasis, I'm sure it would have had an impact on the reaccreditation process. I'm also sure that there was some consideration made that, it's a national challenge, and the city of Atlanta is not unique in that regard, so they probably would have had to rescind other agencies' accreditation if that was part of the criteria.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's interesting. Mr. Chair, when I saw the head count, that's what I thought. I thought they'd just given up and they were going to just move forward with what they got. But, all right, Council Member Overstreet, then Boone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for your presentation and for being here, for sure. I have pretty much kind of the same questions that the other council members have. It does give me pause and a readiness to just move forward with just rubber stamping budget when we don't understand some of the line items. I would first like to figure out how we can, before we actually take a vote, how we can better understand how, in losing 150-something employees or slots that are unfunded, how the difference isn't notated in our budget book. It just isn't adding up. And so I asked myself, so how are they, where is that money then? Like, where does that money go? Like, I see that a lot of things are data driven, and are you just changing the way you're doing business? Because some of the positions that I see that are not filled, I'm not sure that we go back and fill those after the budget and just approve them as a council each time. I don't want us to be in that situation either. So I really am going to have some clarity before we vote, and it's going to have to be public so that everyone knows what we all talked about, because that's what this whole public budget hearing agenda is about, so that as fiduciaries we are understanding what we're doing and explaining it to the citizens, because we're asking them for tax dollars to be spent wisely. And I will also say in the wake of the work session that we had last week, I really feel like this is a department that we're going to have to shore up, and it's got to make sense to the public because of what we're going to be doing in the near future, especially during all of probably FY23. In my district, I saw quite a few tools that you mentioned today that we could use. And so I'm excited about the fact that we are innovative and, definitely data-driven. Like, that's important to me. My only angst right this moment is the fact that we have to be able to shore up our positions and be clear about who's missing on our, how we're going to fill our vacancies and how they're funded. And that needs to be cleared up publicly. Now, in the past, we've had to actually come back with human resources publicly to reiterate some items. Wasn't that last year? Does any of the council members remember that? Look, I'm looking around all these new faces. Oh my gosh. Wasn't that last year? We were Zooming or teaming, but definitely it was still public and, made available to all the world to see. And I think that's what we're going to have to do here. That's the only thing that's going to make me feel good about it. But yeah, talk a little bit about how what you would do next in order to make sure that we get that information. And then talk about how I can get in my district some of those things that we saw. I want the mowers. I want those every week. I would like to have the solar-operated surveillance. We know 10 off the top of my head, 10 places those can go. And I probably bug you to death with this. And I want to also add, out of all of the calls and everything that I do in my office, I would say even above bad streets and potholes, I get called about DPW. So I want to make sure you all are good because I bug you to death. So.
Well, thank you for your support. Immediately, we'll begin working with Chief Bala and his team to provide further details on the reduction in staffing and as it relates to the proposed budget numbers. In regards to your question is how do you get some of the items that we've mentioned in your district, we do have a plan to rotate one of the mobile cameras into your district, into the Georgia Power site where we're having problems in that particular area. There is currently a backlog on the solar-operated cameras to the extent that we may experience delays up to 12 months. And so, again, through innovation, this is where the mobile surveillance cameras came in, is because we're able to obviously move the cameras around a lot more quickly than we would at a fixed location, is that here's another way that we can add another tool into our camera array to address an issue, because we simply can't wait 12 months to be able to get a camera into your district if you need one. We're also looking at manufacturing our own mobile trailer-mounted cameras in our Office of Fleet Services through our welders and our fabricators, that we believe that we can assemble a camera in-house, but we really want to learn the pain points of the cameras that we're piloting. Mm-hmm. But so to answer your question, the robotic mowers, Cascade Road, the interchange was specifically in mind. We wanted to do the demonstration there, but we did not have access to parking. And so it would have been a great way to understand how much time would be involved in performing that work. As you know, we're trying to work with the state. We have over 60 miles of state right-of-way that go throughout the city of Atlanta. Our preliminary numbers show that if we just maintain those areas once a month, this does not include the medians or the interchanges. These are just state routes. The cost is about $250,000 a year. If we did it twice, it would be over $500,000 a year. So we're trying to...
You're speaking of all of our right-of-ways in those areas, correct?
All of the state right-of-ways throughout the city.
Right-of-ways.
Yes, and some of those areas we currently maintain because they're high-profile corridors throughout the city, and so goes back to our data collection component, as well as working with MARTA with their bus stop shelters, with their right-of-ways adjacent to their rails, that we want to understand their maintenance intervals and to see if they're willing to increase their maintenance levels, especially along our arterial roads. So we're working through challenges with the availability of equipment and staff. I think, again, this team is thinking through every issue that we have, but the mobile cameras will be coming to your district shortly.
Okay, I appreciate that. So we're going to look to hear from you about giving us more details about what how we're funding the positions that we have, making sure that, because I know we're hiring, so I just want to make sure that we are on point with the budget item of our salaries for your department. And if we are with the new numbers, I want to know, how did we get there?
Yes, ma'am.
And with that, I will yield.
Thank you, Councilmember Overstreet. Next up is Boone, followed by Norwood, then Lewis.
Thank you, Public Works team, for again doing a spectacular job last Saturday working with the business community, the MPUs, and our nonprofits. It was just a phenomenal job done. Kudos for the camera that was placed in the Carroll Heights community. That community had struggled with that illegal dumping behind the church, and since that camera has been placed there, we have seen no more illegal dumping. I am concerned about making sure that you all have the supplies needed for the workforce. I am concerned that they're overexerting themselves in the field, and we need you all to be honest, because this is a department that we all care about. When we look at the unions that have been here, and we look at the type of work and labor that your group does, it's very concerning that we're looking at all of these cuts. We're looking at them, and we are not happy. So we will need you all to do a deep dive regarding supplies, water, uniforms. Those that have been here, you know that by Thursday, physically, they can't come back until next Tuesday. By Thursday, they work Monday through Thursday. Physically, it's not that they're not showing up. It's not that they don't want to work, but physically, they're not able to come back. So we've got to take care of the workforce. We actually see what you all do. Many departments, we don't know, but people see what you all do, and it is appreciated. So please go back to the drawing board as far as supplies, as far as manpower, and tell us exactly what you need. We are in the midst of talking about solid waste rates. Honestly, we've got to be fair to the citizens of Atlanta. Everyone wants a clean and safe community. But again, thank you so much, and we will look forward to you all coming back with what you need to run the city of Atlanta.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Next up, Norwood, Lewis, then Shipman.
Yes, I just wanted to mention on camera what I mentioned earlier this morning, which is if we're looking at a fee for service, and it was envisioned that you would have one green bin for trash and one blue bin for recycling. And I'm not talking about any particular part of town. I've represented the whole city for a very long time. But in one 5-minute period, I saw 7 homes that had 3 or more bins. One had 5. 3 green bins, 3 blue bins. One had 4. 1 green bin, 1 blue bin, and 2 other bins of similar size but were black. Another one had 4. 2 green bins, 2 blue bins. 4 people had 4 homes had 3. Either 3 green, 2 green and 1 blue, or 1 green and 2 blue. What I'm saying is that when I can find that many residences that have that much excess trash that you are and recycling that you are picking up, and we're talking about a fee for service, it seems to me that we need to figure out a way that we know how much your guys are picking up. I'm a big person, a big believer in telephones, and take a picture. You know, they know where you are. You've got a location. And just your guys don't need to be the arbiter of how much people should pay, but I think all over the city, if we have people that are putting out 5 bins of trash, and yet we're saying it's a fee for service, there's nothing fair about that. That service is either based on 2 bins or 5 bins or whatever it's based on, but if it's a fee for service, that's what it's based on. And we know we've got other things that we're dealing with as well. So this one to me is, let's get some pictures going, even just a pilot project on every route you're on. And let's get a few pictures and see, is what I saw an anomaly? I don't think so. But I would like for y'all to check on that. The second thing is, as Councilmember Boone said about your staff, because I'm in a very congested part of the city, and I don't know if this actually applies everywhere or not, but I see your men be terrified trying to get across traffic. I see them trying to, I see cars that have been stuck in traffic that jump around them. I am very concerned, and so I want to know if there is a way to have any kind of piece of equipment that can literally stop the traffic while they are trying to get the something that comes up and down, a lever of something, so that your men are not faced with what I'm seeing them, and women possibly, seeing them faced with. And I've seen it a lot where I've been terrified for them and felt that it was really unfair to an employee trying to do good work for the city to be frightened for their safety. That's the second thing. The third thing, real quickly, and I don't need an answer to that, I just would like for y'all to be aware that I'm on record that it's of great concern. The third is the blight. Since we have this blight ordinance and we're now dealing with nuisance properties, we need those bad actors to have to give up their property. So I want to make sure that we're all focused on the fact that we can't get out of this as long as they have no consequences. And I know we put liens on the property, and I know we do all that, but we changed the state law. We can take property. I'm ready to take property so that your men and women are not challenged with some of the things that they're challenged with. There's no reason that they are having to your employees are having to deal with the amount of illegal behavior that is going on that is harming the city. So those were my 3.
Thank you, Councilmember Norwood. We got Councilmember Lewis, then Shipman.
Thank you again for coming today. As you know, Dr. King, this is the home of Dr. King, and Dr. King died fighting for the trash man. We've been hearing financial reports all week, and yesterday I didn't get the same energy towards the policemen that they're giving you all today. We got to make sure we treat everybody the same exact way. We got to treat the trash man how we treat the policeman. We know you need resources. Like whenever I hear you say 155 positions unfunded, they had, 400? Same thing. Same questions did not come. Great questions just didn't come. I needed to hear those answers. I wish we could have heard the same questions yesterday. Why would we, my question because I have more questions, because of that question, I invoke some thoughts. If with the 155 positions that are vacant, if we remove them from fiscal year 23, are we basically saying those people, we can't have potential to hire those folks now?
No, Councilmember Lewis, as I understand it, is that they are positions that are still allocated to the Department of Public Works, and the number of 155, is spread across the Fleet Division and the Solid Waste Division. The condition is that when we are able to recruit and onboard these positions is that we will have to secure the funding to staff those positions.
So even though we know we're underfunded, you've been doing an amazing job. Once we found that bottleneck, because we know there was a bottleneck that's been in the hiring process in the city of Atlanta that was taking 90 days, sometimes 4 months before we even get to hire a person. And that bottleneck that we found in the first 100 days since I've been elected was that they were waiting until they got a group of applications instead of interviewing people ongoing. And that's something you found. Since you found that bottleneck, you've been able to increase your hiring by 25%. Is that what I'm reading as well?
Yeah, and it's fair to say through cooperation with the Department of Human Resources, we have established a few hiring blitz exercises to where we've been able to onboard employees and make on-site offers, and that process continues. So yes, we were able to increase our staffing by 25% during the months of November and December, I believe.
And you've discussed most of this budget right here with the mayor's office. So this came already, you've worked with the financial folks. This has been looked at.
The budget has been circulated throughout the administration, and so the question is, have I had a discussion with the mayor? I think he has. No, I haven't, but
I just like to say, because I like to ask people what they need. You're right, this is a brand new city council, and a lot of us are within our second term, and we had a pandemic, so some folks only had 2 years during that term. But we do have a brand new city council and a brand new mayor. I want to fully support him and give him the resources that he needs. And so you think this is what you need in order to do your job effectively and efficiently?
Yeah, and I think the need has been expressed and the need has been acknowledged. I just think the Department of Finance will find creative ways to fund those positions. It's not that the Department of Public Works will not be given the positions. It just means that the process will look differently as it relates to staffing the positions.
I want it to look, however, I know we're investing a lot in staffing police. I want it to look like that. I want to see the housing. I want to see some housing for public workers, because we have the same kind of issues with hiring folks. So we need to see some of the same initiatives in public with you all as well. So I would like to work with y'all to see whatever and look at what they're doing. Because as a group, we're all having the same issues. So I think we need to invest the same thing in y'all. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Got Shipman and Norwood, and then I've got a question. Hopefully we can wrap this up.
Just, I was reminded of a comment that you made, Commissioner Wiggins, in our work session, that Atlanta, as a city, provides services that some of the other municipalities don't, that we have a higher level of service in a lot of instances. Just for the public so they understand this conversation, can you give a couple of examples of the things that we provide either more frequently or services that are above and beyond? I mean, you mentioned things that are outside the bins. I just want to give you an opportunity to describe, because I think part of understanding some of the questions is also understanding the fact that the level of service that's being provided may be above and beyond what other cities have.
Yeah, so the frequency of yard service collections looks a lot differently than most jurisdictions. Our bulk collections, we allow up to 12 bulk collections a year, which is, it's extraordinary. It's just the level of service that our citizens have grown to appreciate and expect. But in direct correlation to your earlier question about a parallel comparison and bringing in the private sector, I was mentioning that the private sector would not collect items outside of the can, and our folks will do that. And the cost per can of actually collecting items, and so and the frequency of our recycling. Some jurisdictions will provide biweekly recycling or just not recycling at all. We also collect glass, which is, I'm not sure if Kanika Greenlee knows of any other local government that provides that service, but that's a unique service that we provide as well.
Atlanta was a leader in keeping glass in our recycling cart, but now that we have anyone that uses our Murford transfer station, can now recycle glass in their local government as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Great, thank you. That's all I had.
All right, we've got Norwood, and then I've got hopefully last questions.
Yes, I just wanted to mention about the state roads and the interstate ramps. It was my understanding many years ago that the state government had to provide maintenance and pothole repair and a bunch of things on their roads and their interstate ramps inside the city limits. And many years ago, there was an MOU where literally the Georgia Works guys were cleaning the state roads and the interstate ramps, and the DOT was paying for that inside the city of Atlanta. Are we doing cleaning on state roads now, and should we be doing that?
So we do subsidize some of the areas. The state does provide maintenance, but their maintenance levels is not consistent with the city of Atlanta's. Their maintenance intervals are like 60 days.
Okay.
And so, of course, the citizen or a motorist does not know state highway from a city-owned route, and in the interest of the city and economic development and the overall appearance of the city, we have gone and performed maintenance with the state's approval through encroachment permits. I believe that the Department of Transportation does have established encroachment permits where they maintain areas through a memorandum of understanding, as you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
But that's in pockets of the city. It's not throughout the entire city limits.
Okay. Well, I think a lot of us would like to be helpful to make sure that it's an appropriate level of service and that y'all are compensated for things that you're doing that are not yours. Thank you.
All right, I think I've got two real quick questions. One is around the recycling commodity prices. What's happening with glass? I don't see it on the chart here.
So we are recycling glass in our single-stream recycling program. Glass that goes in carts in the city of Atlanta is being manufactured into fiberglass materials. There's a large market in North Georgia, so it's staying here within the state and within the region.
So if commodity prices, in terms of who you're looking at?
Glass is not one of the commodities that have seen these level of increases. Cardboard mostly, and paper.
Okay. And then my final question has to do with the purchase service contracted services, the $14.6 million that's being proposed in next year's budget. Is that comparable, and this may be a finance question, to what our burn rate looks like for this current fiscal year? Is it about the same or higher or lower?
It is higher, and that you're bringing up a really good point that kind of circles back on the earlier question around funding for salaries. As the Commissioner has alluded to earlier, just to clarify, they have had to augment personnel with some contracts. And as we proceed throughout the year and they're able to hire, you will see less on the contract line item. And this is where that funding for the salaries would come from. They do have some earmarks for some of the IT projects that they've talked about, but that will be a source that finance would use.
So as we kind of dive back into the staffing numbers as well as the budget, one item I'd like to look at, and I guess we'll see it in the FEC next week, the third quarter burn rate for your department's purchasing contracted services. I imagine, hopefully they're close or within the same ballpark, because that would make a lot of sense.
Just to make sure I understood you correctly, you said you wanted third quarter information as far as our burn rate for purchasing contracted services.
So we'll see that automatically. So I don't think you need to do anything else, but we can dive into that Wednesday. All right. Any other questions or comments from my colleagues? Yes, Ms. Overstreet.
I really want to make sure I don't forget to thank you all for continuing the mini charm at Greenbrier. My community loves it. When we were down and not in person, I think I probably did call you all every month and say, is it this month? Is it this month? Is it this month? And because they've been asking, and they really, 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 really use it and appreciate it.
Thank you. And we are at Greenbrier Mall every third Saturday of the month from 9 a.m. to noon.
Yes, thank you. And I think that started during our scrap tire event my first year, and we've been going strong. So that's wonderful, and I wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you.
Your term. Councilmember Hillis has the final question.
We're talking about pay-as-you-throw, but the chair said he's going to go to a pay-as-you-ask model for us. We've talked about pay-as-you-throw. I've brought up in committees. I brought it up in our work session about some municipalities do the different size bins. But before we get there, I think the first step is the issue that Councilmember Norwood brought up. Does our current system or the system we are looking at implementing, does it have a way? Because right now, at least it's my understanding, if you want another bin, you just pay a $60 upfront fee. Or at least that's something of what is happening here. How can we capture who has more than one of each bin and charge them for it? Does the current software allow that, or is the software we're looking into allow for that? Because that's something we need to be looking at as we consider increasing these fees.
My apologies. So the software that we're looking at does have the ability to incorporate RFID devices onto the cans for us to be able to capture the amount of waste that's collected from a unit measurement, of course, for each address. So that is something that we've looked closely at. The team, the majority of us have gone to Grand Rapids, Michigan to look at the software program. We want to make sure that the software program actually works. We all know that you purchase software programs and they'll tell you the feature will be in the 2.0 program. We wanted to look at the back office. We wanted to look at the operation to make sure that it worked correctly. And so we intentionally went to a location where they had a pay-as-you-throw model. So yes, we are looking at that. Part of our challenge is that currently it's basically legislated that we are required to give an additional can, even if it's just reported as stolen, and so that comes with cost. And I'm sure the majority of the complaints that we receive or requests for additional cans are for a genuine need, but for whatever reason, if the can reappears, therefore the person has another can. We've had several conversations with our staff members. They understand the limits of cans for each household, but I would like to keep in mind that there are single-family houses or houses in single-family communities that are sub-metered, that have additional kitchens, and so therefore they're eligible to receive additional cans as well. That's not a widespread issue. After hearing the concerns that Councilmember Norwood expressed, we will do an audit of that area to see if the cans are out there. We often receive complaints about residents who have additional cans and our folks who won't empty those cans. And so, taking repossession of those cans can be kind of tricky because there was a time that they actually purchased those cans, and so we can't adequately determine how the can was acquired. So, again, the situation is a little bit more complex than it sounds, but the first step is for us to conduct an audit to see if it's a widespread issue throughout the city.
Yeah, and just make sure I'm clear. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be able to get additional cans, but they definitely need to pay for it because the 70-year-old widow that's barely fills up the very bottom of her can shouldn't be paying the same solid waste fee as someone who has, as Councilmember Norwood showed, 3 green bins that are the top is popping off of them. So I'm just hoping we can find a way to capture that when we move forward.
And also I want to add to what Commissioner mentioned as well, too, to Councilmember Norwood's question is, we will have the ability to take before and after pictures as well, too. And I think that's very important as well, too, as we begin to look at our costs, what's actually a late put out versus an actual miss, because there's actual windshield time. So those are some of the things we want to be able to capture over time as well, too.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Wiggins, thank you so much for your team's responses in your presentation today. Obviously, there's a lot of interest from our side simply because you're one of the most public-facing departments that we have here at the city. You're doing a great job in spite of the challenges that have been thrust upon you over the last couple of years. We appreciate the discussion today. We'll see you again with the solid waste fee conversation, but in the meantime, we'll follow up with you with open items from here.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Invest Atlanta folks, thank you for your patience. As soon as we can get everything reset and y'all up here, we'll get started. All right, colleagues, we've got Invest Atlanta up now. We're going to try and make up some time here. We'll just keep going as long as we need to for the presentation as well as the follow-on questions. And then we'll go from there. All right, so Dr. Klementich, I'll hand it over to you to introduce your team and walk us through your presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Council. It's a pleasure to be here in person, so thank you so much for having us. Yes, my name is Dr. Eloisa Klementich, and I'm the proud president and CEO at Invest Atlanta. And to my right is, well, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, good afternoon. Noah Downer. Sure. Noah Downer, the Director of Economic Development.
I'm Nino Chiapetta. Oh, not on. Nino Chiapetta, CFO of Invest Atlanta.
I'm going to go ahead and get started. It's nice to see everybody. And I do the slides. So I thought I'd start with just some overarching highlights at Invest Atlanta. The first thing is I want to highlight that Invest Atlanta is keenly focused on our economic mobility strategy, and I want to thank the Council for accepting and all the work from Councilmember Westmoreland in guiding us to get this through. But the focus of that really is for us to look at pathways of success. And of those pathways of success, there's 4 focused on what is economic systems, people, education, and community. And of those, we specifically have objectives that are going to help us as we move forward on these pathways. And in these pathways, there are some that we are going to lead, some we're going to follow, and some we're going to partner. But we need all of those for us to continue to be successful for looking at economic mobility as a key to our success here in our city, and the ability for Atlantans to participate in that success and to build wealth. We are keenly focused on our underserved communities, and you're going to see that throughout our presentation and what we've done, specifically to not only identify those areas, but also looking for programming and opportunities. If you think of Invest Atlanta, I will tell you there are three main verticals when we think about economic development. The first one is our business retention. Why do we focus on business retention? If you look at studies around the nation, we know about 80% of your job growth is going to come from your existing businesses. So we have to ensure we have people on the ground talking to our businesses so that we can ensure if there's an issue, we can become an ombudsman and help them through it, so that as they're growing their business, they're not only investing more in the city, but they're also hiring more jobs. And that's specifically why we're so keenly focused, and you'll see that this budget supports having people on the ground creating those relationships, because they are relationships with our mom and pops. They have to touch and feel us. The second is our business attraction focus. So this is attracting new companies to the city. That not only supports the growth of jobs and investment, but brings a greater diversity. It helps us strengthen our clusters and makes us more resilient when we know there's our economic challenges in the future. So the more resiliency we can establish and create, it makes it easier for us to recover from any economic downfall. The reality is we live in a democratic society, so there are going to be economic cycles. So the question is, how quickly can you come out and how quickly can you recover? And I believe this will be crucial to our ability to do that. We've talked about small businesses. There are about 17,000 small businesses in the city. They are the heartbeat of what we do. We know that. And we've really started to expand our tools to address their needs. So you're going to see an expansion in this budget of being able to be a home base, for example, startup businesses, or for the first time we will now have a program where we will be able to support businesses at locations where property is owned by the city. And I'll talk about a little bit about that and what that means in nuance, and specifically about promoting more mom and pops at locations like the airport. And then the last is innovation and entrepreneurship. People have asked me, Eloise, why does Invest Atlanta focus on innovation and entrepreneurship? And I'll say there are really two main reasons. The first is we have Fortune 500s in this city, and we are the third highest ranking. So if you look at New York, Texas, then it's Atlanta. But our Fortune 500s are much more diverse, right? We're not focused on oil and gas and finance. So that is great for our economy. So what we've recognized is some of these big companies aren't able to innovate in the city. And we can all think of a big company that existed when we were little and doesn't exist today. And so how do we ensure that our companies are able to reinvent themselves and address these economies? And a lot of it's going to come from being innovative. So if they can't do it internally, then we have to ensure there's a network. And what's so exciting about Atlanta and our growth is we have a concentration of corporate innovation centers in Midtown. I believe it's the highest in the nation. So this is the ability to innovate, to think of that next product, because we want to ensure that the big companies continue to be healthy. At the same time, the second main reason is we want to help fulfill dreams. So how do you get an individual who's thinking about starting a bakery shop or a auto body shop or a dry cleaning, whatever it is they want to do, or a huge tech company? How do we help promote those dreams, help those small entrepreneurs become big entrepreneurs? Because everybody started small. So you just don't know which small company will be our next middle-sized company and will be our large company. So that is why innovation entrepreneurship is so important. The second is, next is I want to highlight just some of the companies to make this real and show that this is really companies in your district, in the city of Atlanta, that are benefiting from our services. Avery is it's a beauty and health center. They used our loan to be able to put actually product on the shelves. We were excited to help them. The other one is Bill's Eye, is a company that we've been able to help. And this is what I want to say is our secret sauce when you compare Invest Atlanta to other economic development agencies throughout the nation, is that we leverage services. They first came in through our innovation and entrepreneurship side of the House in October of 2021. We walked them through and we were able to get them the city's new emerging technology tax incentive, and I want to thank this council. It is working. That's the one where if you're an innovative company, you have to register, but you do not have to pay for your business license. Why does that matter? Because in these startup companies, you got to pay it forward, so they know when you're starting out, you're not making much income, so every dollar out can make a difference. And so that tool really helped. We were able to get them through. And then in 2022, we were able to link them with our small business loan department. They got a small business loan, which allowed them to improve their application. They're a technology company, and they were voted in 2020 from the Bar Association as the best new app. So we're really excited about what this company may do and where its future lies. We were able to help Overtime Elite, if you've seen them over there by Atlantic Station. They're looking to recruit and develop some of our top basketball athletes. Not here to say whether a family should or should not join Overtime, but what I think is important is every family should have choices to understand where they could put their children. This opens that opportunity. And what we liked is this opportunity also provides education support for the individuals coming into the facility. Micron is another huge company that we're excited to welcome to our city. They have to be one of our companies that I've seen with the most aggressive diversity and equity and inclusion companies. We want more of those that are committed to the same values that we are. And so we're excited about what they're doing. Why did they choose Atlanta? They told us they've chosen Atlanta because they were looking for a strong market where there were a lot of engineers. They wanted to ensure that there was a manufacturing sector and that there was a strategic geographic location in their choice. And that's why Atlanta really became their place to call home. I also thought it'd be a good opportunity just to close out the COVID programs for you. There were 4 basic programs for COVID. There was a Business Continuity Loan Fund, started off as a loan. Then you had the Strength and Beauty, Create ATL Relief Fund, and the Resurgence Fund. If you look across the spectrum of those 4 programs, there were over 1,400 applications, 924 awards, for a total of $20.3 million. 2 things are relevant about that. First, I want to say that I am honored to be part of this city. We were the first ones out, and I want to thank this council on a tool for small business. Go back to COVID, if you remember. It was March. We all weren't sure what was going to happen. In fact, I was one of those who believed we would never close. I know, got that wrong. And really, it was in May, this council approved a loan. That was 2 months. We had a loan program out. I'm telling you, I called my colleagues across the nation. We were the first ones out with the program. Hence, you have allowed Investment to change that into a grant, and we got that out. So I want to thank you for that support. And then at the same time, when we got the first allocation of COVID CARES, at that time it was CARES Act dollars, we had to get all the money out in 6 months. Do you remember that? 6 months. We had to fly the plane, create guidelines to the plane, and to get all the money out at the same time. We met that goal. So I was super excited about the team. I just want to highlight that I'm really privileged to work with amazing staff who really gave up their weekends and nights to get that out and meet that down, because we were going to ensure that the city of Atlanta wasn't going to give $1 back, at least not from our shop. So we made sure we did that, and I was really proud that we were able to produce that. So let's highlight some of the team members. For this budget in particular, this request will support the following team. I went ahead and asked the team how many years of experience. Lonnie threw it off. If you know our amazing Lonnie, he has 43 years. He was been working since Maynard Jackson. But amongst us all, over 130 years of economic development experience from this department. So again, I just wanted you to get a sense that this really is a stellar team that you have on the ground working some of your programs. Now, on to some of the questions you specifically asked us in terms of our budget trends. So you'll see for fiscal year 20 it was $3 million. This year we're asking for the same as last, which is $3.5 million. That allows us to support the areas that are important, the small business development part, the business retention expansion, us walking the streets talking to our businesses, our creative industries, our innovation and entrepreneurship, and our last is our business attraction. That's specifically where this budget allocation will go. In terms of our metrics, our economic mobility plan has a total of 38 metrics that we have. This specific budget, we'll talk about the 15 and I'll show them for you. And in the appendix, in case you wanted to see, I put all 38 so you have them. Our proposed budget really is, first and foremost, it's people. It's creating the relationship. It's walking the corridor, talking to our mom and pop, making sure and ensuring they know about our application and application process. So you'll see the first line item really is focused on our people, and I've gone ahead and shown you who those are. Then we're going to talk about economic development programming. We've been very strategic this year and really thought about how do we ensure that our programming is help leveraging us when it comes to our metrics. So you're going to see specifically some funds focus on us going to specific conferences. So we're going to go to a lot of ICSC. We want to create relationships with retailers. You'll see why in just a second. We're going to continue to create relations with site selectors, but we're also going to ensure that our internal systems are strong. So you'll see some spending in terms of data and reporting as well, and then training. I have to ensure I have time for staff. And then we're going to look at pipeline development. What do we continue to do with different organizations in terms of how do I ensure that I can, when a company's looking to expand from wherever they are, whether international or national, and they're looking for a Southeast presence, I want them to choose Atlanta. So again, 3 pieces that are very key. And lastly, I'll say some of this budget was also going to support us on our 6 offices that we now have. So Invest Atlanta's headquarters, or HQ, is at the 133 Peachtree address, but we now have 6 regional offices throughout the city, from the Russell Center of Innovation to Mary Parker Center, Goodwill, Pittsburgh Yards, Atlanta Tech Village, and iVillage, and we are negotiating more. So the idea is we've structurally changed the way Invest Atlanta does business. You do not need to go to Invest Atlanta anymore. If you want to see a person closer to you, we're hoping you can hit one of these 6 regional offices. So the question is, we want to meet you as you want to communicate with us first, or let's say you say, no, Luis, I'm not interested in going. I want to do an online office hours. Guess what? You can book that directly on our website today. You go on our website and you say, I want to meet, and then we have everybody you can meet with, and it automatically goes into their calendar so you can specialize. Maybe I need finance support. Maybe I need marketing support. Whatever it is you need, we're going to be able to try to target and make it easier. And this will also support, lastly, is our infrastructure. We've consolidated all of the tools that, thanks to this city council and the mayor, we've been able to support in terms of supporting businesses. It's all on one website. So from your applications to your loans to any information about different services. So we have technical assistance providers today on the ground. So Invest Atlanta may not help you with writing your business plan, but one of our technical assistance providers will. One of our technical assistance providers are going to help you with your financial management. So the key is, how can I make small businesses even more successful in our city? So these are as I mentioned, the economic mobility strategy gives us our path forward. There are 38 goals. This budget specifically will look at 15 of the goals. They fall within, the strategy is 5 objectives. This budget request will support 2 of those, which is the creation of good jobs, and you're going to see those listed on the screen. And the second KPIs are the small business KPIs. The other ones have to do with access to good jobs, focus on workforce development, and then neighborhood investment and affordable housing, which comes from a different source of budget allocation. I not not only challenged the team and said, okay, we have our objectives, we have our economic mobility strategy, it's giving us the path forward, but what are we also doing in terms of specific programs to support, to ensure we're meeting city requirements and businesses where they need it. And so we've also created strategies. We are going to continue to really focus on job generation and investment. That's crucial, we understand, because that then as we create more jobs and more investment, not only do we provide those to Invest Atlanta, but we help creating more taxes here in the city. But we're really focusing on the middle wage job. And we have taken on an effort to define what a good job is, and so we'll be reporting that out next month. We're spending a lot of time really having discussions about what is a middle wage job, how much should the salary be, and what should be part of that package. You're seeing us spend time there. On our small business development strategy, we'll continue to support small businesses throughout the city for their growth. Again, this is not only important for job creation and investment, it's important for dreams, but it's important for creation of wealth. Right back to our economic mobility strategy. The individual, how do you get them to really get up to that $18, $20 an hour is really what we want to do, or even become an entrepreneur, whatever they'd like to do. The business retention and expansion, I cannot tell you how important it is to be able to walk the streets and be able to shake hands. So we actually have a team of people that are walking. We've never had that before. They're walking on key commercial corridors. We've done it for Resurgence Round 2, but to make sure and walk people through, because some of our mom and pops, that's very overwhelming. I have to tell them, I know I put that out there. We've asked for a lot of information in the Resurgence. I have to because of Department of Treasury, but I've really tried to streamline as much as I possibly can. And lastly, I'll end with what other things are we doing. So overarching, these are some of the programs. Other strategies in particular that this fund is going to support is we want to do a food desert strategy. We've started to do some initial research. We know that there are about 40 grocery stores in the city, about 16 in the Northeast. Northwest has about 8, Southeast has 4, and Southwest has 12. If we look at Department of Agriculture, agriculture defines a food desert as anybody who doesn't have access to food, and we're trying to understand, define, within 1 mile. Our goal is how do we become very specific to address this need in the city of Atlanta, hence why we have to go to conferences like ICSC. That's where I meet the Whole Foods or the Kroger or Publix, all of those, and create those relationships, because it's through the relationships that I'm going to be able to tell them, look, this is what's going on in this community, because they're running data that's a year old. And so oftentimes they don't see some of the investments that we're doing. So once they understand, oh, we're making an investment. We just invested on Metropolitan. There's now a Goodwill store and a training center, and then there's going to be a new police station, and there's a library. So once you create that sort of story, I can get them interested. So you'll see us spending time. The second is on the Wells Fargo grant. If you've noted, when you've seen the news, we were awarded $20 million from Wells Fargo. I am so excited about this opportunity. Why? Because it gives us the flexibility we haven't seen before. So, for example, our small business loans. Our small business loans have to be given only for those businesses in the city. Makes sense. But I have an amazing airport, and how many small mom and pops are starting out would love access to the airport. So I just want to thank the airport for their support. They are actually going to start a program to try to get some of our mom and pops or some of our legacy businesses in the airport. But then once they have the opportunity, we know they need help. So on this specific targeted loan tool, we said you have to be in the city of Atlanta or on city-owned property. Gets us at the airport. We've never had that opportunity to be able to work together with the airport to try to help bring legacy small businesses to that area. So I'm excited about what that opportunity will mean. It also allows us to really track our underserved communities, and that is part of our criteria, is that we're trying in your evaluation. So it's not everything, but in your evaluation, if you are an underserved, you get a certain number of points, which allows really for us to target us businesses in this part of town that have not been served. And so if you want, we have that map on our website. You could actually go on today and see specifically. It's based on like 14 criteria. We work with Bloomberg and ARC to create this map. So excited about what this will mean. The last thing I'll say is our small business and medium business development strategy here. It's all about how are we not only helping to support an entrepreneur's dream. I want everyone to be successful in our city and city of Atlanta, but how do we support this wealth creation? Because that's the strategy, the economic mobility strategies. How do we get individuals, all individuals, to be able to participate in the success of Atlanta, and not only to fulfill their dreams, but to support their families. And that is a key focus of what we're doing, and we're holding my entire team accountable to those goals and metrics. And with that, Chair, I open it up to any questions that Council may have.
Thank you so much. Chair Wan has had to step out. I'm going to finish up the morning segment. Questions, comments? Mr. Amos.
Thank you. First and foremost, thank you for the presentation. I am really encouraged about the teams that are walking the community outreach. You know, I've been knowing Invest Atlanta since it was ADA, Atlanta Downtown Development Authority, but I am really encouraged about your team going out and doing that. We talked a lot about business development, but I see on one of your slides, neighborhood investment and affordable housing was actually shaded out. Is that a matrix we're not trying to really look at this year? Or explain that different color on the slide.
Yes. So this budget in particular is $3.5 million to support economic development services. So it's not that it's not important, but our affordable housing is really focused and supported by IRFA, which is our Urban Residential Finance. So it has nothing to do with important. It's just not part of the 3.5, which that's why I didn't want to confuse things.
Gotcha. Understand. I think that is actually it. I had a tag question, but I was talking to Mr. Johnny on yesterday, and so I called her back today.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, you were talking about the food deserts. I was given the name of a doctor, PhD, Stephanie Adams, who is the executive director of Global Health C3, and she is right here on Peachtree Street. What she was reaching out to me for, and I have not had a chance to talk with her, is the fact that SNAP is now available through a delivery service. So you can use Instacart or any of the delivery services to order your nutritional food, and it is brought to your door. And so as you are looking at food deserts, she has actually implemented this.
Okay.
So she will be a great contact. So if you'll give me the best, is it Clement, you know I can't pronounce your name all these years.
Clementage, yes.
At AtlantaDA.com. Or at BestAtlanta.com. Okay, I will send you her contact information right now. I think that might jumpstart, and I had mentioned this to several of my colleagues who said this could be great in our areas.
Game changer.
And can also be proof of need in areas where you're looking for other things that have come in on the ground, but tracking this in a way that will say the demand is there. Correct. And that we just need to be innovative in the way we deliver that the food and the service to them.
Great. We'll follow up. Thank you, Councilmember.
Ms. Overstreet, and then Mr. Lewis.
Hello, good afternoon now. So I just wanted to just chime in because I did see, well, first of all, I'm comfortable with your budget, and that's why we're here. But I did see where you are implementing quite a few things that we've talked about over the years, which I appreciate big time. I remember in 2018, we started talking, and I'm like, I need a street team. Like I do. I need a street team. And we talked about what that looked like, and I do think that's making a difference. I've for the first time this year, have had people to ask me about what you all are telling them. It has been the other way around for the past 4 years.
Good.
And so that means that we're making those strides. And of course, it's never going to be as fast as I'd like it to be, but I am encouraged by that. They are feeling the presence of Invest Atlanta, and that's important. I love that Campbellton Road is one of the places where you've set up, because that is one of our food deserts. I mean, and that is one of the places where our communities can really utilize the knowledge of how to grow their business and how to be good business partners and just learn what's available to them. And, we're fostering good businesses, and that's important to me. And so I know when you said we had 12 grocery stores in Southwest Atlanta, I'm really trying to figure out where those are, because I have 0. I have 0.5. One of them I will not call a full-fledged grocery store, but I have 0.5 on all of Campbellton Road. Okay. And so I've ridden Campbellton Road with the mayor. We went to the 0.5, and we rode all the way down, because on 285, west and east of 285, we have 0. And so we have, and I'm making it my business for these 4 years to find us too. And I feel good about it, I really do, because I've got the raw numbers and some interested parties, but I just want to make sure we hit it home. And I do know that I'm seeing you more often in the community, because we are, some of the work that we've done over the last 3 to 4 years, including traveling together, it's finally coming to fruition. So I do feel like we're going to hit our mark over these next 4 years, and I just... I just want to make sure that we just all stay on the same page, keep communicating. I never have a doubt that you aren't clear about your line items, so I feel good about your budget. I just want to make sure that you know that I think that we're on track. Thank you. The whole team.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I really didn't have to hear much of what you were talking about, because we talk so often, and you're always in contact with all my staff, from Ms. Eloisa talking to everybody in my office. I appreciate you for things you've been doing. And when I heard you talk about food deserts, I know it's been a priority of mine. And to see you specifically say the area of District 12, I know it's the first time you've ever come up here and put that up there. So it means that we've been working. I just want to say also, when I hear Invest Atlanta talk, I call y'all the money. I call you the money of the city. Atlanta works when we send our elected officials off and they come back with resources. When I just heard your report, that means Mayor Dickens went and got some resources and brought them back. It's my job to make sure that food desert is a priority, because that was a priority of my campaign. And to hear you talk grocery stores in particular, since day one, I've been talking about one grocery store in my district. So to hear you specifically talk about that, I want to know, is that something you've ever talked about in here, grocery stores not being in the city?
Well, I'll tell you, Councilmember Overstreet has been a huge advocate of this, and we've been working with her on specifically going to ICSC and attracting them, but we've never put it as a highlight strategy. Okay. Because I hear you, I'm really trying to be receptive, and I think that's important. Not only have our economic mobility strategy, but have items that are receptive to the city's needs, and I feel this is something where we have to focus on.
Yeah, and even working with extending the Resurgent grant this year. I know the reason why I wanted to extend it so bad when we got elected was because you started a new practice. And your new practice where you were in the communities. And so when we did that, I saw the numbers grew for just interested parties in the Resurgent grant, because the one bottleneck was you were too far from us. And so when you came into the communities putting 4, we got 3 or 4 in District 12 almost, because I almost consider, I met the Mary Parker Foundation so often, I feel like she's an auntie of mine right now. But I want to say I appreciate you for being innovative, being active in the community. And I know when I hear your report, that's Mayor Dickens going to get the money. And that's what Atlanta has always done. We've sent our guys places and they brought back the money. So thank you for telling us what's going on with the bank. It's our job to spend it. Thank you again.
And we can provide, Noah, do you want to give an update on the Resurgence Grant too? How many applications we've received? Approximately?
Yeah, so as of 2 days ago, 1,670 have been submitted, with 4,165 in progress. So that's from 2 days ago. Hopefully the number has gone up. But as a reminder, it's through the 27th of this month.
And part of another reason why we extended it, was the amount, the percentage of black folk that had applied, or black or brown folk, were less than 3% at one point. What's the percentage of that?
I'd have to go back and look at that, and we don't pull them until they're actually in. So I can't pull that for you now, though.
Yeah, I appreciate you, because I know part of what we did, we canvassed. We ain't just put it out. We canvassed. We made phone calls. We had thank you for making yourself so available. Kelsey, one thing I want to talk about. I didn't see Kelsey's name in this booklet, but Kelsey gave us 5 hours of his time. He went through an application with every single person who called. We had 56 people on that call, and he made sure that happened. So I appreciate what you're doing, and I expect to see District 12 folks' names all through your books, because we're going to be in your office. Thank you again.
You're welcome. Yeah, Kelsey's been an awesome addition for Invest Atlanta. He's actually walking up and down the streets with us and other teams. So, yeah, he's really pushing us, which is great.
Mr. Winston.
Just want to say thank you for your presentation and the incredible work that Invest Atlanta has been doing. It's been very visible, especially in my district, District 1. I've seen, all the investments that you've made in small businesses, and hear that when I go talk to constituents. Had two things I wanted to talk about. One was, the work around food deserts. Just in my district, I know that we've seen the expansion of urban food forests, and so there's opportunities where people are working in urban farms in different areas. But it seems like there's an issue where where we don't have access to be able to get those from transportation. And so I didn't know if there was any work that you all were doing to, maybe even partner with MARTA or any other transportation providers to be able to provide access to those who, aren't able to reach those type of resources in the community.
I've noted that. At this point, we were trying to just identify, so no, it wasn't, but I've noted it.
Okay, thank you. And then the other one, and I've talked to you, Dr. Clementish, about just my personal experience and my wife and I being a benefactor in the down payment assistance program, and what that means to people, and being able to, share the American dream of home ownership. In the last week, we've seen the Fed interest rates go up. That's something that we are expected to see continue to go up. Unfortunately, that means that home ownership becomes, somewhat unattainable for some people who may not be able to afford it, as the cost to be able to finance purchasing a home keeps going up. Just looking for anything or any insight from Invest Atlanta, something they may be doing to help those who, may be able to afford, 80 to 90% AMI, but as that continues to creep up with the interest rate, are we doing anything to help those?
The biggest tool we have to be able to help home ownership is our down payment assistance program. So we're looking to see how we can continue to layer the programs, because what we're seeing is, if before we needed to put $10,000 in to help someone make a dream, because of the interest rates, it may have to be 15 to 20. So the question is, which tools can I layer to provide individuals with more opportunities? So, yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
But the council president is going to close us out, after which we'll be paroled to a brief lunch, and we will resume with watershed management, which can be found in your hymnal at page 265. Mr. President.
Thank you. First, let me say that I appreciate the work that you've done around the creative industries and the arts, especially over the last couple of years. It has been quite laudable, and also the neighborhood centers going out and making Invest Atlanta much more accessible on a geographic basis. I think those are excellent moves. I just have a few questions. If you go back to the FY23 proposed budget, could you give just a bit more detail on the line item Economic Development Programs 1.15 and the implementation of Economic Mobility Plan 350? Those two line items, how much of those are loans, how much of those are grants, how much of those are other things?
Yeah. So if we look at the programs, I'd say the programs are in certain buckets. The first off, in terms of our program, it really is, if you look at programming we did, thinking about how do we participate in programs like Engage Ventures, Russell Center of Innovation, and ATD Showcase. So these are opportunities where we're specifically engaging because we know there's certain entrepreneurs there that we want to help be successful. In infrastructure, so I'm talking about economic development programs, in infrastructure we looked at in-plan, deal room, pitch book, retail space. So these are programs that allow us to not only improve our research in terms of information, but then allow us to pass that out to the entrepreneur. So for example, in pitch book, it's an opportunity where startups can come in and meet with potential funders. We want to make sure that that information is available. So it has to do with our technology and our platform connecting an entrepreneur to businesses. Then we'll have another set of programs where we're really target on pipeline development. So there you're going to see us at events specifically at like a Money 2020, a Select USA, which brings businesses international that are looking for expansion opportunities. We want them to land in Atlanta. And then we're going to focus on site selectors. So again, pipeline development. Then we're going to do our training. So there is a pot of money for training. And our last big bucket is really our offices. We know that there's some of the funding of our offices is coming out of alternative sources, but not all of it. So whatever is not missing will be in that funding. So really the programming is to help support specifically the strategies. So you'll see some of that, I would say, and the program has to do with Food Desert, for example, or we have more walking teams. So it really is to help us support the execution of our programming.
Got it. And just for clarity and for the public's benefit, FY23, COVID money in sort of all of those different programs. Is there FY23 COVID dollars available, or is that now finished? Has it run its course?
So the Resurgence Plan has ARP dollars in there, American Rescue Plan dollars, so we will be executing that. We suspect most of the dollars will be spent by the end of the year, I would say.
Calendar year?
Calendar year of this year in December. After that, then I think the ARP monies will be out. And so we will be then relying on other sources of funding.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say other sources of funding, which then pulls in Wells Fargo, which that Wells Fargo is $20 million, so that will allow us to complement, and that money's for 3 years. So you'll see that money is based in 3 buckets. It's the loan program, facade improvement, and then commercial ownership. So for the first time in our history, I'm so excited, there's a lot of firsts in our history, we will be able to support. So if you think about affordable housing, and Councilman Wentz talked about how it's hard for an individual to buy a home, for us, we're having the same conversations for commercial, for small businesses. So I think of like the mom and pop shop that's been at a location for 20 years paying rent. How do I get you to get money for a down payment assistance to then buy your location? And so for the first time, we'll actually have money to do that. And then we've also carved out money for us to work with a nonprofit or a like-minded group to go take down property. Take it down means to purchase the property and to have below market rents in perpetuity, so that an entrepreneur starting up could say, sort of like the concept of the iVillage, I don't have to pay as much rent, I can test out my product, then when I grow, I go back into the big company. So again, looking at 2 strategies, but for the first time, we'll be able to address the commercial rise, because we're seeing, just like business, just like individuals, people are suffering from some areas of gentrification, which we're doing a lot to prevent, but in this case, it's putting together strategies for the same thing for businesses.
Is there any relationship between your efforts around small business and small business marketing and small business support and ACBB? ACBB has an enormous amount of marketing, dollars that they put out there. I see a lot of trends around tourism being go to a city and see the authentic city, right? Find this little thing, find this shop that's been there forever, and we have so many legacy small businesses. But that seems to be a real opportunity.
I'd agree. Do we do it enough? No. There's a lot of things, but yes, I agree, and I'll make sure to follow up.
Okay. On the food desert side, I would just make a point to connect two dots. There's no question large retail grocery stores are important, but I also think those neighborhood markets are huge fillers. Mm-hmm. And one of the pain points that a lot of them have shared with me is that you need special readers, for instance, for SNAP benefits and for WIC benefits, and they don't have the capital to actually purchase those readers. And so you actually have a situation where you could be providing fresh, food, but the SNAP benefits, this is the same thing that farmers markets faced, right? Farmers markets had to buy the right equipment so they could basically take SNAP benefits and then open up. That's, I think, a leverage that could be quite helpful. If you filled the gap between the small retailers' ability to take those programs from a small capital upfront investment, it's going to unlock. You're going to go.
We're happy to do. I'll do a targeted campaign specifically toward them so they know. The Wells Fargo program, and I'm taking advantage because I'm on the mic, is a 3%, no higher than a 3% interest, and we can delay payments. So that might be the perfect tool. They could get a loan from us for up to $100,000, purchase them, not have to make any payments. We could structure it perhaps. I mean, they got to work with the team, but up to 6 months, 3% interest. I don't have free money, which is always the best, but that's as close as I'm going to.
Well, and I would say that, and I'm happy to connect offline, but the American Heart Association actually has a program locally working on these specific issues, trying to unlock these types of things. One more question on this, and then I have a couple questions on TADS. The other question I would have is, the thing that I don't see on your small business KPIs that I would have expected and I would encourage you to think about is small business associations, right? Small business associations in this city, there are three. I did a poll of council members. There are 3 to 4 per district that are established, or probably could be double that if we really supported them a bit more. But these are abilities for small businesses to organize themselves, to market themselves, support each other, technical assistance, and they develop expertise to use your programs better, to use the rest of the city's programs better. To me, there's a real KPI missing here around support for those associations, because they're in essence enabling themselves. We're helping to enable themselves to interact better, with all of us in the public sector. So I think that somehow should be, instead of only measuring how much you're directly supporting individual small businesses, which are important, but a small business association can support a whole neighborhood, can support a whole area of the city. And I think this is another key piece to the South Side conversation, is that some of that infrastructure, and I grabbed the transition document that the mayor received, a lot in there is around neighborhood empowerment and empowering neighborhoods to be more able to interact with programs. And I think this is a key kind of missing piece, maybe.
Well, I have to tell you that we've taken advantage of the small business associations. So because they're great networks and they're trusted, right? Oftentimes they may see us and not necessarily who are they and can we trust them? And so we've set up sessions, and Kelsey's led some of them, Michelle's led some, where we kind of walk them through. This is the application. This is what we're looking for, so that there's no question. So when a business comes to them and says, I don't know what to do, they know how to help. So we've done a huge outreach like we've never had to small businesses associations. I may not have it in the KPI or track it, but rest assured that we have greater presentation than we've ever had with our small business associations.
Good.
I'll actually add, if I could, Council President, that it's actually on one of the KPIs of an individual on our team. So it may not be up on the roll-up, but it's a dedicated resource to ensure that they're connecting on a monthly basis with the different business associations across the city.
Great, thank you. Just wanted to turn for TADS for a moment. In your report to CDHS, I think we talked a little bit about TADS. But I'm just curious on a broader perspective, how do you see TADS going forward? Do you see TADS as a tool that we should be deploying on the South Side, for instance? Is it a new TAD in the offing? Is that, or do you think that the time of Atlanta using TADS is past and we're sort of going to run out the ones we have, pay off debts, Princeton Lakes, Atlantic Station, et cetera? I'm just curious. I mean, that's a huge lever that we've used in the past. What does it look like going forward?
I'm not sure I can answer what would it look like going forward, but I'm going to answer what it is from a practitioner. What we do as we oversee as your implementer agent on TADS. TADs in some cases have been tools for us to provide resources to a community where I didn't have any other tools. And so it's good and bad because you can't port, meaning you can't, if you have one TAD has money, I can't move it to another. So in the retrospect, if you didn't have a TAD, then that was the challenge, which is why we were looking for alternative fundings. So I would say it really is a matter of resource. There are certain communities that are very, very much in need of certain aspects, and so that tool has helped that community. So whether it's the tool is a TAD or the tool looks a little different, I'll leave that up to you. The question is, I need resources. I need to be able to go in there and help with the facade improvement program, to help be the gap filler in projects. So I'm not quite sure if TADS is the way forward, but the tool is how do I provide resources so projects can happen, so business can be successful, and we can implement more programming. And that's where the TADS has really been successful.
Let me ask a slightly different question. When you look across the landscape nationally, and I know sometimes they're called tax increment financing, TIFs or TADs, do we see...
Everywhere but Atlanta.
Yes, I'm aware. Do we see other municipalities continue to do new TADs? Is that something that continues to be robust?
Yes. I see other communities, not only here in Georgia, I've gotten calls that want to establish a TAD or a TIF, but I've also gotten some from colleagues nationally that are also looking to establish in terms of what the benefits are to them. And I've always said, look, it depends on your community and what your resource base is, because maybe it's a TAD, it's a community improvement district, maybe it's some other, but the question is, what resource do I have to address the issues of a community? And that each community is different.
So I would just end by saying I think Invest Atlanta's experience is very unique because you have, in my opinion, over the last 15 to 20 years, caught an enormous amount of new programs and special programs, and you've really been sort of the utility player for the city in a lot of ways. I think as we are serious, and there are many members of this council who came on this council talking about making sure we invest in the South Side, invest in places that haven't gotten resources, try to find those types of lifts for people who have been left behind in the city. I think you could be extremely helpful by saying, hey, here are the different options that communities have for resources. Here's why you use them. Here's why you don't use them. Here are examples, because I think that I would just say that sort of benchmarking will allow this body to consider how to deploy different tools in different places. And I'm not sure, at least for myself, that I could say, hey, if I think about Mr. Lewis's district, I think a TAD's great or it's terrible, or I think this program's great or it's terrible. I can't do that. Maybe he can, he's not here. But I think that your benchmarking, because you have so much experience in so many different geographies with so many different kinds of programs, could be extremely instructive as we make policy over the coming months and years.
Happy to do that. And I just want to jump off of something you said. It's the leverage. I am really humbled. I said at the beginning, I'm proud. I am really proud to lead this entity. I have had the opportunity to work with different colleagues throughout the nation. I'm on the board of IADC. I go on different trips to help different localities improve. And they've always said, how do you guys do it? And it's the fact that you can leverage. You have the economic development side of the house and the community development side of the house, and now it's working much closer with WorkSource. It allows for us to your point, to leverage the funds and maybe leverage and braid. So for all of our government entities, I don't lose, and I know that each one has their own reporting stream, but there are different funds that become important. So if you need, I use the analogy, my husband's a tool guy, if you need a hammer, you're actually using the hammer, not the other side of a screwdriver because you can't find the hammer, right? So yes, you could, but you'll be much more effective in terms of time, efficiency, et cetera. So I just want to say that I'm really proud, and we do a lot of leveraging at Invest Atlanta.
Thank you.
My God.
Two very quick comments. I mean, seriously, 1 minute. You can start your counter.
Well, first of all, tell me how lunch was.
Oh, I haven't eaten.
Go ahead.
So very quickly, also, it'll be good to remind us that maybe the funding formula for tasks have changed in the city of Atlanta as well. When I was on the school board, we made an agreement with the past administration that may seriously impact the amount of resources as you talk about if we create another tag. And then the other piece, if you would, and you probably already talking to, reach out to Atlanta Housing and the developers of the New Herndon home development, because the community was promised a grocery store, in which I think that may not be happening. But as the council president talked about, here's a perfect opportunity to probably take one of the existing neighborhood stores and grow into a serious neighborhood grocery store. And you always use 7 Under. Over on the east side of town is a perfect example. So here's an opportunity to really put the tools you have in place to make the community work. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, well, listen, so we've left ourselves a few minutes for lunch. I want to thank the Invest Atlanta team. Doctor, specifically, we always appreciate hearing about your accomplishments, and we appreciate your passion. And with that, we'll be back at 1 for Watershed Management. Exeunt omnes.